In the 1970s, our grandmothers knew how to make casseroles that fed a crowd.
Put it in a casserole, edge with 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs.
Their creativity in the kitchen didn't just fill bellies, it created bubbling golden dishes so satisfying they turned canned vegetables into celebrations. Casseroles that have been lost to time.
Here we are, the tuna noodle surprise.
It looks wonderful, Mom.
Can I have a big piece, Grandma? I'm starving.
These 30 forgotten Christmas casseroles from the 1970s might sound too simple today, but they carried families through tight budgets, holiday gatherings, and beyond. Let's rediscover forgotten Christmas casseroles from the 1970s that have disappeared. Walk into Grandma Betty's Michigan kitchen on December 24, 1975, and watch her making tuna noodle casserole. She'd boil egg noodles until tender, drain them, and mix them with 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup, a can of tuna, drained, frozen peas, and milk. The mixture went into a greased casserole dish. She'd crush an entire bag of potato chips and spread them over the top in a thick layer. It baked at 350 degrees until the soup mixture bubbled and the potato chips turned golden and crispy. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted creamy and salty, with the potato chips adding crunch to the soft noodles and tuna. The mushroom soup made everything rich and savory. Stand beside Grandma Dorothy's Connecticut kitchen table on December 25, 1973, and watch her assembling chicken divan. She'd layer cooked broccoli spears in the bottom of a casserole dish, top them with sliced cooked chicken breast, then pour a sauce made from cream of chicken soup, mayonnaise, lemon juice, and curry powder over everything. She'd sprinkle shredded cheddar cheese on top, then cover it with buttered breadcrumbs. It baked until the cheese melted and the breadcrumbs turned golden. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted creamy and rich, with the curry powder adding warmth and the lemon juice adding brightness. Walk into Grandma Ruth's Utah kitchen in December 1977 and watch her making hash brown casserole. She'd mix a bag of frozen shredded hash browns with cream of chicken soup, sour cream, melted butter, diced onion, and shredded cheddar cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish. She'd crush cornflakes, mix them with melted butter, and spread them over the top. It baked until bubbling and golden. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 12 people. It tasted rich, creamy, and cheesy, with the cornflake topping adding crunch. Stand in Grandma May's Kentucky kitchen on December 23, 1974, and watch her making corn casserole. She'd mix a can of whole kernel corn, drained, a can of creamed corn, a box of Jiffy corn muffin mix, sour cream, melted butter, and sometimes shredded cheese. The batter was thick and lumpy. It went into a greased casserole dish and baked until the top turned golden brown and slightly crispy. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted sweet and corny, like cornbread in casserole form, with a texture that was part pudding, part cornbread. Walk into Grandma Linda's Texas kitchen in December 1976 and watch her making cheeseburger casserole. She'd brown a pound of ground beef with diced onions, drain the grease, then mix the beef with cooked elbow macaroni, a can of tomato soup, ketchup, mustard, and shredded cheddar cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with more cheese and crumbled bacon. It baked until the cheese melted and bubbled. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted like a cheeseburger in casserole form, savory, slightly sweet from the ketchup, cheesy and rich. Cheeseburger casserole disappeared by 1984 when people decided ground beef casseroles were low class and started serving real dinners. Whiz, stand beside Grandma Pearl's Florida kitchen on December 24th, 1978, and watch her making broccoli rice casserole. She'd cook white rice until tender, then mix it with frozen chopped broccoli, thawed, cream of mushroom soup, and an entire jar of Cheese Whiz. The mixture was thick, bright orange, and cheesy. It went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with crushed Ritz crackers mixed with melted butter. It baked until bubbling. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted creamy, cheesy, and slightly artificial from the Cheese Whiz, but nobody cared because it was delicious. The Ritz cracker topping added buttery crunch. Broccoli rice casserole disappeared by 1985 when people decided Cheese Whiz was fake cheese and started making everything with real cheddar. The tradition died when processed cheese became shameful instead of convenient. Walk into Grandma Hazel's Minnesota kitchen in December 1975 and watch her making tater tot casserole. She'd brown a pound of ground beef with diced onions, drain the grease, then spread the beef in the bottom of a casserole dish. She'd mix a can of cream of mushroom soup with milk and pour it over the beef. A bag of frozen mixed vegetables went on top of the soup. Then she'd cover everything with a single layer of frozen tater tots. It baked until the tater tots were golden and crispy. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted savory and comforting, with the tater tots providing crispy contrast to the creamy soup. Tater tot casserole didn't disappear entirely. Minnesotans still call it hot dish and make it constantly, but most of America stopped making it by 1985 when casseroles became unfashionable. Stand in Grandma Faye's Arkansas kitchen on December 23, 1972, and watch her making squash casserole. She'd slice yellow squash and boil it until tender, then drain it thoroughly and mash it slightly. She'd mix the squash with beaten eggs, sour cream, diced onion, shredded cheddar cheese, salt, and pepper. The mixture went into a greased casserole dish. She'd crush a sleeve of Ritz crackers, mix them with melted butter, and spread them over the top. It baked until the crackers turned golden and the squash mixture set like a custard. The casserole cost 75 cents to make and fed 8 people. It tasted creamy and slightly sweet from the squash, savory from the cheese, buttery from the crackers. Squash casserole disappeared by 1985 when people stopped growing summer squash and started buying zucchini instead. The tradition died when southern vegetables became regional instead of universal. Walk into Grandma Edna's Pennsylvania kitchen in December 1974 and watch her making chicken and stuffing casserole. She'd layer cubed cooked chicken in the bottom of a casserole dish, pour a mixture of cream of chicken soup and sour cream over the chicken, then top it with prepared stovetop stuffing mixed with melted butter. It baked until the stuffing turned crispy on top. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted like Thanksgiving in a casserole, savory, herby, creamy, with the stuffing providing texture and crunch. Chicken and stuffing casserole didn't disappear entirely, but the tradition of making it at Christmas died in the 1980s when people decided stuffing belonged only at Thanksgiving. The recipe survived in church cookbooks, but vanished from most home kitchens. Stand beside Grandma Ruby's Mississippi kitchen on December 25, 1976, and watch her making macaroni and cheese casserole with tomatoes. She'd boil elbow macaroni, drain it, then mix it with a can of stewed tomatoes, juice and all, shredded cheddar cheese, butter, salt, and pepper. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with more cheese and buttered breadcrumbs. It baked until bubbling. The casserole cost 75 cents to make and fed 8 people. It tasted creamy and tangy, with the tomatoes adding acidity that cut through the richness of the cheese. Macaroni and cheese with tomatoes disappeared by 1983 when people decided tomatoes didn't belong in mac and cheese. The tradition died when Kraft Dinner became the only acceptable version of macaroni and cheese, and homemade versions with tomatoes were forgotten entirely. 10 casseroles gone, 40 left. Every single one used a can of cream soup, a bag of frozen something, or a box of stovetop. Your grandmother wasn't cooking fancy. She was feeding families on $2 budgets. You judge her shortcuts while ordering DoorDash. Keep going. Walk into Grandma Dorothy's kitchen in Ohio on December 24th, 1973, and watch her making green bean casserole, the classic version that started it all. She'd mix 2 cans of green beans, drained, with 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, half a cup of milk, soy sauce, and black pepper. The mixture went into a casserole dish. She'd top it with French's French fried onions, the canned kind that came in a tin. It baked until bubbling, then she'd add more fried onions on top and bake for 5 more minutes until they were golden. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted creamy, savory, and slightly salty, with the fried onions adding crunch. Green bean casserole didn't disappear. It still made every Thanksgiving, but the tradition of serving it at Christmas died in the 1980s when it became too common. Stand in Grandma May's Kentucky kitchen on December 23, 1975, and watch her making spaghetti casserole. She'd boil spaghetti, drain it, then mix it with jarred spaghetti sauce, browned ground beef, and cottage cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with shredded mozzarella cheese. It baked until the cheese melted and bubbled. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted like lasagna without the layering, cheesy, tomatoey, meaty, with the cottage cheese adding creaminess. Spaghetti casserole disappeared by 1984 when people decided cottage cheese didn't belong in Italian food and started making authentic lasagna instead. The tradition died when shortcuts became embarrassing and everyone pretended they'd always made lasagna the hard way. Walk into Grandma Betty's Michigan kitchen in December 1974 and watch her making 7-layer salad in a clear glass casserole dish so you could see the layers. She'd layer shredded iceberg lettuce, frozen peas, thawed but not cooked, diced celery, diced red onion, hard-boiled eggs, chopped, crumbled bacon, and shredded cheddar cheese. Then she'd spread mayonnaise over the entire top, sealing it like frosting. It chilled overnight, and the mayonnaise soaked down into the layers. The salad cost $2 to make and fed 12 people. It tasted cold, creamy, crunchy, and bacony. 7-layer salad didn't disappear entirely, but it stopped being served at Christmas by 1985, when people decided mayonnaise-based salads were gross and outdated. The tradition died when lighter, fresher salads replaced mayonnaise-heavy versions. Stand beside Grandma Pearl's Georgia kitchen on December 25, 1977, and watch her making sweet potato casserole. She'd boil sweet potatoes until tender, peel them, mash them with butter, sugar, eggs, milk, and vanilla. The mixture went into a casserole dish. She'd cover the top with a thick layer of miniature marshmallows. It baked until the marshmallows melted, puffed, and turned golden brown on top. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted like dessert. Sweet, buttery, with the marshmallows adding gooey sweetness. Sweet potato casserole didn't disappear. Southerners still make it every Thanksgiving. But the tradition of serving it at Christmas died in the 1980s, when it became too Thanksgiving-specific. The marshmallow version was replaced with pecan streusel toppings when people decided marshmallows were childish. Walk into Grandma Ruth's Vermont kitchen in December 1976 and watch her making hamburger rice casserole. She'd brown a pound of ground beef with diced onions, drain the grease, then mix the beef with cooked white rice, a can of tomato soup, a can of water, frozen mixed vegetables, and shredded cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with more cheese. It baked until bubbling. The casserole cost $1.25 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted savory and slightly sweet from the tomato soup, with the rice soaking up all the flavors. Hamburger rice casserole disappeared by 1984 when people decided ground beef casseroles were boring, and 2 1950s. The tradition died when rice-a-roni and hamburger helper replaced homemade rice casseroles. 15 casseroles erased, 35 left. These weren't gourmet. These weren't Instagram-worthy. These were designed to feed crowds cheaply. Your grandmother fed 10 people for $150. You spend $15 on a Chipotle burrito. That's the difference between her generation and yours. Let's keep going. Stand in Grandma Iris's Oregon kitchen on December 24, 1972, and watch her making tuna puff casserole. She'd mix canned tuna with cream of celery soup, milk, frozen peas, and diced celery. The mixture went into a casserole dish. Separately, she'd beat eggs with a little flour and milk until frothy, then pour the egg mixture over the tuna. It baked until the egg mixture puffed up like a soufflé, turning golden on top. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 6 people. It tasted creamy and light, with the puffed egg topping adding airiness to the dense tuna mixture. Tuna puff casserole disappeared by 1983 when people stopped making soufflé-style casseroles because they deflated too quickly. The tradition died when shortcuts that required beating eggs became too much work. Walk into Grandma Edna's Pennsylvania kitchen in December 1973 and watch her making pork chop and rice casserole. She'd spread uncooked white rice in the bottom of a casserole dish, pour cream of mushroom soup mixed with water over the rice, then lay raw pork chops on top. She'd season the chops with salt, pepper, and garlic powder, cover the dish tightly with foil, and bake for an hour and a half. The pork chops cooked. The rice absorbed the soup and pork drippings, and everything became tender. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 6 people. It tasted savory and meaty, with the rice creamy and flavorful. Pork chop and rice casserole disappeared by 1985 when people stopped baking raw meat and rice together because it seemed weird. The tradition died when convenience meals replaced one-dish dinners. Stand beside Grandma Agnes's Boston kitchen on December 25, 1975, and watch her making salmon casserole. She'd mix a can of salmon, drained and flaked, with cooked egg noodles, cream of celery soup, frozen peas, and milk. The mixture went into a casserole dish. She'd crush potato chips and spread them over the top. It baked until bubbling and the chips turned golden. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted fishy and creamy, with the potato chips adding salty crunch. Salmon casserole disappeared by 1984 when people decided canned salmon was cheap and potato chip toppings were trashy. The tradition died when younger generations refused to eat anything made with canned fish. Walk into Grandma Linda's Texas kitchen in December 1974 and watch her making Mexican casserole. She'd brown ground beef with taco seasoning, then layer crushed Doritos in the bottom of a casserole dish. The beef went on top of the Doritos, then she'd add a layer of refried beans, a layer of sour cream, and a thick layer of shredded cheddar cheese. It baked until the cheese melted. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted like nachos in casserole form, cheesy, spicy, crunchy from the Doritos. Mexican casserole didn't disappear entirely, but the tradition of making it at Christmas died in the 1980s when Tex-Mex food became too casual for holiday dinners. The recipe survived as taco casserole, but lost its Christmas association. Stand in Grandma Dorothy's Minnesota kitchen on December 23, 1976, and watch her making chicken and wild rice casserole. She'd cook a box of Uncle Ben's long grain and wild rice according to package directions, then mix it with cubed cooked chicken, cream of mushroom soup, sour cream, and frozen mixed vegetables. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with slivered almonds. It baked until the almonds toasted. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted savory and slightly nutty from the wild rice, creamy from the soup and sour cream, with the almonds adding crunch. Chicken and wild rice casserole didn't disappear entirely, but most people stopped making it at home by 1985, when boxed rice mixes fell out of fashion and from scratch became the only acceptable way to cook. 20 casseroles down, 30 left. Every single one baked in a 9x13 dish. Every single one fed a crowd. Every single one cost less than $3. Your grandmother knew how to stretch a dollar. You know how to order Grubhub. That's not an upgrade. Keep going. Walk into Grandma Faye's Arkansas kitchen in December 1975 and watch her making zucchini casserole. She'd slice zucchini and boil it until tender, drain it, then mix it with beaten eggs, sour cream, shredded cheddar cheese, and diced onion. The mixture went into a casserole dish. She'd top it with Jiffy corn muffin mix prepared according to package directions, spreading the batter over the zucchini. It baked until the cornbread topping turned golden. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted savory and slightly sweet, with the cornbread topping adding texture. Zucchini casserole disappeared by 1984 when people stopped growing zucchini and started thinking it was boring. The tradition died when summer squash became something only gardeners ate. Stand beside Grandma Helen's Ohio kitchen on December 24, 1977, and watch her making beef and noodle casserole. She'd brown ground beef with diced onions and bell peppers, drain the grease, then mix the beef with cooked egg noodles, a can of tomato soup, a can of diced tomatoes, and shredded cheddar cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with more cheese. It baked until bubbling. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted like goulash, tomatoey, beefy, cheesy, with the noodles soaking up all the sauce. Beef and noodle casserole disappeared by 1985 when people started calling it slop and refused to eat one-pot meals. The tradition died when casseroles became unfashionable and everyone wanted individual plated dinners. Walk into Grandma Margaret's California kitchen in December 1973 and watch her making artichoke casserole. She'd drain 2 cans of artichoke hearts, chop them roughly, then mix them with mayonnaise, grated Parmesan cheese, garlic powder, and lemon juice. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with breadcrumbs mixed with melted butter. It baked until the top turned golden and the edges bubbled. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 6 people. It tasted rich, tangy, and garlicky, with the artichokes staying tender. Artichoke casserole disappeared by 1985 when people decided mayonnaise-based casseroles were gross. The tradition died when lighter, oil-based preparations replaced heavy, creamy versions. Stand in Grandma Ruth's Vermont kitchen in December 1978 and watch her making carrot casserole. She'd boil sliced carrots until tender, drain them, then mash them slightly. She'd mix the carrots with butter, brown sugar, eggs, and a little flour. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with crushed Ritz crackers mixed with melted butter. Walk into Grandma Pearl's kitchen in Hawaii in December 1976 and watch her making Spam casserole. She'd cube a can of Spam and fry it until the edges were crispy. The Spam went into a casserole dish with cooked white rice, cream of mushroom soup, milk, frozen peas, and shredded cheddar cheese. It baked until bubbling. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 8 people. 25 casseroles gone, halfway there. These used ingredients you mock: Spam, Jiffy Mix, canned artichokes, Ritz crackers. Your grandmother wasn't embarrassed by shortcuts. She was smart. She fed families. You judge her while eating ramen. That's the difference. Let's finish this. Stand beside Grandma Edna's Pennsylvania kitchen on December 23, 1974, and watch her making cauliflower casserole. She'd boil cauliflower florets until tender, drain them, then place them in a casserole dish. She'd make a cheese sauce by melting butter, whisking in flour, adding milk, and stirring in shredded cheddar until smooth. The sauce poured over the cauliflower, and she'd top it with buttered breadcrumbs. It baked until golden. Walk into Grandma Dorothy's Connecticut kitchen in December 1975 and watch her making chicken tetrazzini. She'd boil spaghetti, drain it, then mix it with cubed cooked chicken, cream of mushroom soup, sour cream, sherry, and shredded Parmesan cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with more Parmesan and buttered breadcrumbs. It baked until golden. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with more Parmesan and buttered breadcrumbs. It baked until golden. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted creamy and rich, with the sherry adding depth. Chicken tetrazzini didn't disappear entirely, but most people stopped making it at home by 1985 when cream-based pasta dishes fell out of fashion. The tradition died when light and fresh replaced creamy and rich. Stand in Grandma Hazel's Indiana kitchen on December 1977 and watch her making Frankfurter casserole. She'd slice hot dogs into coins and brown them in a skillet. The hot dogs went into a casserole dish with cooked elbow macaroni, baked beans, ketchup, mustard, and brown sugar. It baked until bubbling. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted like baked beans and hot dogs, sweet, tangy, smoky. Frankfurter casserole disappeared by 1983 when people decided hot dogs were kid food and refused to serve them at adult dinners. The tradition died when processed meat became embarrassing. Walk into Grandma May's Pennsylvania kitchen in December 1972 and watch her making cabbage roll casserole. She'd brown ground beef with diced onions, drain the grease, then mix the beef with cooked rice, tomato sauce, and seasonings. She'd chop a head of cabbage and boil it until tender. In a casserole dish, she'd layer the cabbage and beef mixture, then pour more tomato sauce over the top. It baked until bubbling. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted like stuffed cabbage rolls without the work, savory, tomatoey, with the cabbage tender and sweet. Cabbage roll casserole disappeared by 1985 when people stopped eating cabbage. The tradition died when Eastern European foods became too ethnic. Stand beside Grandma Rosa's New Jersey Italian kitchen on December 24, 1978, and watch her making eggplant Parmesan casserole. She'd slice eggplant, salt it to remove bitterness, then fry the slices in olive oil until golden. In a casserole dish, she'd layer fried eggplant, jarred marinara sauce, shredded mozzarella, and grated Parmesan. The layers repeated until the dish was full. It baked until the cheese melted and bubbled. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted rich, tomatoey, and cheesy, with the eggplant soft and flavorful. Eggplant Parmesan casserole didn't disappear entirely, but most people stopped making it at home by 1985 when frying eggplant became too much work. The tradition died when baked versions replaced fried. 30 casseroles gone. 20 left. Every single one baked at 350 degrees. Every single one used a 9-6-13 dish. Every single one fed a crowd. Your grandmother owned one casserole dish. You own none. That tells you everything you need to know. Let's finish. Walk into Grandma Betty's Michigan kitchen on December 23, 1973, and watch her making tuna macaroni casserole with peas. She'd boil elbow macaroni until tender, drain it, then mix it with 2 cans of tuna, drained and flaked, a can of cream of celery soup, a cup of milk, and a bag of frozen peas, thawed but not cooked. The mixture was thick and creamy, with the tuna breaking into chunks and the peas adding bright green color. She'd pour everything into a greased casserole dish and top it with crushed cornflakes mixed with melted butter. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 30 minutes until the soup mixture bubbled around the edges and the cornflake topping turned golden and crispy. She'd let it rest for 5 minutes before serving, allowing the casserole to set slightly. The casserole cost $1.25 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted creamy and mild, with the celery soup adding subtle flavor and the tuna providing protein. The peas stayed bright and slightly sweet, and the cornflake topping added buttery crunch. Tuna macaroni casserole with peas disappeared by 1985 when people decided canned tuna was cheap and cream soups were processed. The tradition died when younger generations refused to eat anything made with canned fish, even though their grandmothers had fed entire families with it for decades. Stand beside Grandma Dorothy's Ohio kitchen on December 24, 1976, and watch her making chicken and biscuit casserole. She'd mix cubed cooked chicken with cream of chicken soup, frozen mixed vegetables, corn, peas, carrots, green beans, and a little milk. The mixture went into a casserole dish. She'd open a can of refrigerated biscuits, Pillsbury Grands, and tear each biscuit into quarters. She'd drop the biscuit pieces randomly over the top of the chicken mixture, covering it like dumplings. The casserole baked at 375 degrees for 30 minutes until the biscuit pieces puffed up, turned golden brown, and the chicken mixture bubbled around them. The biscuits on top stayed fluffy, while the ones touching the sauce absorbed moisture and became soft and dumpling-like. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted like chicken pot pie without the crust, creamy, savory, comforting. The biscuits added a buttery, doughy element that soaked up the sauce. Chicken and biscuit casserole didn't disappear entirely, but most people stopped making it at home by 1985 when refrigerated biscuits became too processed and everyone started making biscuits from scratch, which nobody actually did. The tradition died when shortcuts became embarrassing instead of practical, and the recipe was forgotten. Walk into Grandma Helen's Connecticut kitchen in December 1975 and watch her making beef stroganoff casserole. She'd brown ground beef with sliced mushrooms and diced onions, drain the grease, then stir in a can of cream of mushroom soup, sour cream, beef bouillon, and Worcestershire sauce. The mixture was thick, creamy, and savory. She'd cook egg noodles until tender, drain them, then mix the noodles with the beef mixture. Everything went into a greased casserole dish, and she'd top it with shredded cheddar cheese and a sprinkle of paprika. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 25 minutes, until the cheese melted and the edges bubbled. The top turned golden and slightly crispy where the cheese browned. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted rich and creamy, with the mushrooms adding earthiness and the sour cream adding tang. The egg noodles soaked up all the sauce and became soft and flavorful. Beef stroganoff casserole disappeared by 1984 when people decided real stroganoff shouldn't use ground beef or cream soup. The tradition died when recipes that required less tender cuts of beef braised in wine became the only authentic version, even though nobody actually made those. The casserole version, cheap, easy, and delicious, was dismissed as fake and forgotten. Stand in Grandma Agnes's Maryland kitchen on December 25, 1974, and watch her making oyster casserole. She'd drain 2 pints of fresh oysters, saving the liquor. She'd layer crushed saltine crackers in the bottom of a buttered casserole dish, then add a layer of oysters. She'd dot the oysters with butter, season them with salt, pepper, and a little Worcestershire sauce, then add another layer of crackers and oysters. She'd pour the reserved oyster liquor and a little cream over the top, then finish with a final layer of crushed crackers dotted with butter. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 30 minutes until the crackers on top turned golden and the oysters were cooked through but still tender. The oyster liquor and cream combined into a rich, briny sauce that soaked into the crackers. The casserole cost $4 to make because fresh oysters were expensive, and it fed 6 people. It tasted briny, rich, and slightly sweet from the oysters, with the crackers providing texture. Oyster casserole disappeared by 1983 when fresh oysters became prohibitively expensive and younger generations refused to eat them. The tradition died when oysters went from everyday food to luxury item, and recipes that used them by the pint became impossible to afford. Walk into Grandma Ruth's Vermont kitchen in December 1977 and watch her making lima bean casserole. She'd cook 2 bags of frozen lima beans until just tender, drain them, then mix them with cream of mushroom soup, sour cream, diced onion, and shredded cheddar cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with crushed Ritz crackers mixed with melted butter. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 30 minutes until the cracker topping turned golden and the lima beans were bubbling. Lima beans were one of those vegetables kids hated, but grandmothers insisted on serving. The casserole was meant to make them more appealing by covering them in cream and cheese. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted creamy and mild, with the lima beans staying firm and slightly starchy. The Ritz cracker topping added buttery crunch. Lima bean casserole disappeared by 1985 when people stopped buying frozen lima beans and started calling them gross and mealy. The tradition died when younger generations refused to eat lima beans in any form, and the vegetable nearly vanished from American tables. Grandma Ruth stopped making it in 1982 when her grandchildren picked out every lima bean and left them on the side of their plates. 35 casseroles erased, 15 left. These used oysters, lima beans, canned biscuits, and cream soups. Your grandmother made food that fed families. You make excuses about not having time to cook. She had less time than you. She just had better priorities. Let's finish. Stand beside Grandma Edna's Pennsylvania kitchen on December 23, 1972, and watch her making shepherd's pie casserole. She'd brown ground beef with diced onions and carrots, drain the grease, then mix the beef with a can of beef gravy and a bag of frozen peas. The mixture went into the bottom of a casserole dish. She'd make instant mashed potatoes according to package directions, then spread them over the top of the beef mixture, smoothing them with a spatula. She'd drag a fork across the top to create ridges, then dot the potatoes with butter. The casserole baked at 375 degrees for 30 minutes until the potato topping turned golden brown on the peaks and the beef mixture bubbled around the edges. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted savory and comforting, with the beef and gravy rich and meaty, the vegetables tender and the mashed potato topping creamy and slightly crispy on top. Shepherd's pie casserole didn't disappear entirely, but the tradition of using instant mashed potatoes died in the 1980s when people decided instant potatoes were fake and started making them from scratch, which took 3 times as long. The casserole version, quick, easy, and delicious, was dismissed as not authentic and replaced with complicated versions nobody actually preferred. Walk into Grandma Dorothy's Minnesota kitchen in December 1978 and watch her making chow mein casserole. She'd brown ground beef with diced onions and celery, drain the grease, then mix the beef with a can of cream of mushroom soup, a can of cream of chicken soup, a can of la choy chow mein vegetables, drained, a can of la choy bean sprouts, drained, and soy sauce. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with la choy chow mein noodles straight from the can. Those crunchy, fried noodles that came in a red and white can. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 25 minutes until the mixture bubbled and the noodles on top stayed crispy. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted vaguely Asian, salty from the soy sauce, crunchy from the noodles, with the beef and vegetables in a creamy sauce. It wasn't authentic Chinese food, but it was what 1970s Midwestern families thought Chinese food tasted like. Chow mein casserole disappeared by 1985 when people discovered actual Chinese food and realized this was nothing like it. The tradition died when la choy canned vegetables stopped being sold in most grocery stores and younger generations refused to eat fake ethnic food. Stand in Grandma Agnes's Boston Irish kitchen in December 1974 and watch her making corned beef and cabbage casserole. She'd chop leftover corned beef from Christmas Eve dinner, boil chopped cabbage until tender, drain it thoroughly, then mix the corned beef and cabbage with cooked egg noodles, cream of celery soup, and shredded Swiss cheese. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with buttered breadcrumbs mixed with caraway seeds. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 30 minutes until the breadcrumbs turned golden and the casserole bubbled. The caraway seeds toasted and released their distinctive rye bread aroma. The casserole cost almost nothing because it used leftovers and it fed 8 people. It tasted like a deconstructed Reuben sandwich, savory, slightly tangy from the corned beef, with the cabbage sweet and tender. The caraway seeds added the flavor of rye bread without the bread. Corned beef and cabbage casserole disappeared by 1983 when people stopped making corned beef at home and started buying it pre-sliced from delis. The tradition of using Christmas Eve leftovers for Christmas Day casseroles died when families started eating out instead of cooking at home, and the recipe was forgotten entirely. Walk into Grandma Rosa's New Jersey Italian kitchen in December 1976 and watch her making baked ziti casserole. She'd boil ziti pasta until just tender, drain it, then mix it with jarred marinara sauce, ricotta cheese, beaten eggs, grated Parmesan, and dried Italian seasoning. Half the mixture went into a casserole dish, then she'd add a layer of sliced mozzarella, then the rest of the pasta mixture, then another layer of mozzarella on top. The casserole baked at 375 degrees for 35 minutes until the cheese on top melted, bubbled, and turned golden brown in spots. The edges of the pasta that poked above the sauce turned crispy and slightly charred. The casserole cost $2 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted rich, tomatoey, and cheesy, with the ricotta adding creaminess and the mozzarella providing stretchy, gooey texture. The crispy pasta edges were the best part, crunchy and intensely flavored. Baked ziti casserole didn't disappear entirely from Italian-American tables, but the tradition of serving it at Christmas died in the 1980s when it became too everyday, and families started making lasagna instead because it seemed fancier. The casserole version, easier and just as delicious, was replaced with complicated layered versions that took twice as long. Stand beside Grandma Sylvia's New York Jewish kitchen on December 25, 1975, and watch her making noodle kugel. She'd boil wide egg noodles until tender, Drain them, then mix them with beaten eggs, sour cream, cottage cheese, sugar, cinnamon, and raisins. The mixture went into a buttered casserole dish, and she'd dot the top with butter and sprinkle it with more cinnamon sugar. Some families made savory kugel with onions and pepper instead of sugar and raisins. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 45 minutes, until the top turned golden brown and slightly crispy, and the egg mixture set into a custard-like texture. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted sweet and custardy, almost like a dessert, with the noodles soft and the raisins plump. The top was the best part, crispy, cinnamon-scented, and caramelized. Noodle kugel didn't disappear from Jewish households, but the tradition of making it at Christmas died when Jewish families stopped celebrating Christmas or started making it only for Passover. Grandma Sylvia stopped making it in 1980 when her grandchildren said it was weird to eat sweet noodles. The recipe survived in Jewish delis, but vanished from most home kitchens. 40 casseroles gone, 10 left. These used leftover corned beef, la choy vegetables, instant mashed potatoes, ricotta cheese. Your grandmother wasted nothing. The recipe survived in church cookbooks, but vanished from most home kitchens when cream-based pasta dishes fell out of fashion. Stand beside Grandma Margaret's Maryland kitchen on December 25, 1977, and watch her making crab casserole. She'd pick through a pound of fresh lump crab meat, removing any bits of shell, then mix the crab with mayonnaise, diced celery, diced onion, lemon juice, Worcestershire sauce, and a little mustard. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with crushed Ritz crackers mixed with melted butter. Some versions included hard-boiled eggs or breadcrumbs. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 25 minutes until the cracker topping turned golden and the crab mixture was heated through. The crab stayed tender and sweet, not overcooked. The casserole cost $6 to make because fresh crab was expensive and it fed 6 people. The tradition died when crab went from regional staple to luxury item, and recipes that used a pound of crab became impossible to afford for most families. Walk into Grandma Edna's Pennsylvania kitchen on December 26, 1973, and watch her making ham and potato casserole from Christmas dinner leftovers. The casserole baked covered at 350 degrees for an hour, then uncovered for 15 more minutes to brown the cheese. The potatoes cooked until tender, absorbing the soup and ham drippings. The casserole cost almost nothing because it used leftovers, and it fed 8 people. It tasted creamy and smoky, with the ham salty and the potatoes soft. The cheese on top turned golden and slightly crispy. Ham and potato casserole didn't disappear entirely, but the tradition of making it from Christmas leftovers died in the 1980s when people stopped making giant hams and started buying pre-sliced deli ham instead. The recipe survived as scalloped potatoes with ham, but lost its identity as a leftover casserole. Stand in Grandma Pearl's kitchen in Georgia in December 1975 and watch her making asparagus casserole. She'd drain 2 cans of asparagus spears, lay them in the bottom of a casserole dish, then pour a can of cream of mushroom soup mixed with a little milk over them. She'd top the soup with a layer of shredded cheddar cheese, then cover everything with crushed saltine crackers mixed with melted butter. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 25 minutes until the crackers turned golden and the cheese melted into the soup. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 6 people. It tasted creamy and mild, with the asparagus soft and slightly grassy. The cheese added richness, and the saltine crackers added salty crunch. Asparagus casserole disappeared by 1984 when people stopped buying canned asparagus and started roasting fresh asparagus with olive oil instead. The tradition died when cream soup-based casseroles became outdated, and everyone wanted lighter, fresher preparations. Grandma Pearl stopped making it in 1981 when her family said canned asparagus was mushy and gross, even though they'd eaten it happily for decades. Walk into Grandma Ruth's Vermont kitchen in December 1978 and watch her making meatloaf casserole. She'd mix ground beef with breadcrumbs, an egg, diced onion, ketchup, and seasonings, but instead of shaping it into a loaf, she'd spread the mixture in the bottom of a casserole dish. She'd spread a layer of mashed potatoes over the meat, then top the potatoes with shredded cheddar cheese. Some versions added a layer of cream of mushroom soup between the meat and potatoes. The casserole baked at 375 degrees for 35 minutes until the meat was cooked through, the potatoes were heated, and the cheese melted and turned golden. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted like meatloaf and mashed potatoes combined, savory, comforting, with the cheese adding richness. Meatloaf casserole disappeared by 1985 when people decided meatloaf should be shaped into a loaf, not spread in a casserole dish. The tradition died when presentation became more important than convenience, and recipes that saved time were dismissed as lazy. Grandma Ruth stopped making it in 1982 when her family said it didn't look like real meatloaf, even though it tasted exactly the same. 45 casseroles erased. 5 left. These used Christmas leftovers, turkey, ham, corned beef, and turned them into new meals. Your grandmother wasted nothing. You throw away leftovers after 2 days. She fed families for a week on one turkey. That's the difference. Here are the last 5. Stand beside Grandma Dorothy's Ohio kitchen on December 24, 1976, and watch her making spinach casserole. She'd thaw 2 boxes of frozen chopped spinach, squeeze out every drop of water. This was critical. Wet spinach made the casserole soggy. Then mix the spinach with softened cream cheese, sour cream, diced onion, garlic powder, and shredded Parmesan. The mixture went into a casserole dish, and she'd top it with buttered breadcrumbs mixed with more Parmesan. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 30 minutes, until the breadcrumbs turned golden and the spinach mixture was heated through and bubbling around the edges. The breadcrumb topping added crunch. Spinach casserole didn't disappear entirely, but the tradition of making it at Christmas died in the 1980s when spinach artichoke dip became trendy, and people realized spinach casserole was basically hot spinach dip in casserole form. The recipe survived at Thanksgiving, but vanished from Christmas tables when side dishes became lighter and fresher. Walk into Grandma Linda's Texas kitchen in December 1975 and watch her making tamale pie casserole. She'd brown ground beef with diced onions and garlic, drain the grease, then mix the beef with a can of diced tomatoes, a can of corn, drained, chili powder, cumin, and salt. The mixture went into the bottom of a casserole dish. She'd make a cornbread topping by mixing Jiffy corn muffin mix with an egg and milk, then spread the batter over the beef mixture. Some versions included sliced black olives and shredded cheese. The casserole baked at 375 degrees for 30 minutes until the cornbread topping turned golden brown and the beef mixture bubbled around the edges. The cornbread formed a thick, cakey layer that absorbed the juices from the meat. The casserole cost $1.50 to make and fed 8 people. It tasted like tamales without the work. Spicy, corny, savory, with the cornbread topping sweet and moist. Tamale pie casserole disappeared by 1985 when Tex-Mex food became trendy and people started making authentic versions with mesa instead of Jiffy mix. The tradition died when shortcuts became embarrassing and everyone pretended they'd always made things from scratch. Stand in Grandma Agnes's Maryland kitchen on December 25, 1974, and watch her making oyster dressing casserole. She'd crumble day-old white bread into a bowl, mix it with chopped celery, diced onion, melted butter, chicken broth, and poultry seasoning. She'd spread half the dressing mixture in a casserole dish, add a layer of fresh oysters, drained, then cover with the remaining dressing. She'd pour a little oyster liquor and cream over the top, then dot it with butter. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 40 minutes, until the top turned golden and the oysters were cooked through but still tender. The dressing absorbed the briny oyster flavor. The casserole cost $4 to make because fresh oysters were expensive, and it fed 8 people. It tasted like traditional bread stuffing, but richer and brinier, with the oysters adding a sweet oceanic flavor. Oyster dressing casserole disappeared by 1983. When fresh oysters became prohibitively expensive, dressing absorbed the briny oyster flavor. The casserole cost $4 to make because fresh oysters were expensive, and it fed 8 people. It tasted like traditional bread stuffing, but richer and brinier, with the oysters adding a sweet oceanic flavor. Oyster dressing casserole disappeared by 1983 when fresh oysters became prohibitively expensive and younger generations refused to eat them. The tradition died when oysters went from everyday Christmas food to luxury item, and recipes that used a pint of oysters became impossible for most families to afford. Walk into Grandma Pearl's Florida kitchen in December 1977 and watch her making pineapple casserole. She'd drain 2 cans of pineapple chunks, mix the pineapple with sugar, flour, and shredded cheddar cheese, yes, cheese with pineapple. Then pour the mixture into a buttered casserole dish. She'd crush Ritz crackers, mix them with melted butter, and spread them over the top. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 25 minutes until the cracker topping turned golden and the pineapple mixture bubbled. The cheese melted into the pineapple and created a sweet, savory sauce. The casserole cost $1 to make and fed 10 people. It tasted sweet and tangy from the pineapple, rich from the cheese, buttery from the crackers. It was bizarre, sweet fruit with cheddar cheese, but somehow it worked. Pineapple casserole didn't disappear entirely from Southern tables, but most of America stopped making it by 1985 when people decided mixing fruit and cheese was weird. The tradition died when food became segregated into sweet or savory, and dishes that crossed the line were dismissed as old-fashioned or gross. Stand beside Grandma Edna's Pennsylvania kitchen on December 27, 1978, and watch her making leftover everything casserole. This wasn't a specific recipe, it was whatever was left after Christmas dinner. She'd cube leftover turkey or ham, mix it with leftover mashed potatoes, leftover stuffing, leftover green beans, leftover corn, and any other vegetables that were still good. She'd add a can of cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup to hold everything together, mix it all up, and pour it into a casserole dish. The top got covered with crushed crackers or leftover dinner rolls torn into pieces and dotted with butter. The casserole baked at 350 degrees until everything was heated through, and the top turned golden. She knew that a can of cream of mushroom soup cost 25 cents and could turn anything into a casserole. She knew that crushed Ritz crackers made everything better. She knew that a 9x13 casserole dish could feed 12 people for under $2. You don't know any of this because you've never had to feed 12 people on a $2 budget. You order takeout for 2 people and spend $30. Your grandmother would be horrified. What really happened was this: casseroles became unfashionable. Cream soups became processed. Frozen vegetables became low quality. Ritz cracker toppings became trashy. The butt of jokes about Midwestern church potlucks and 1970s dinner parties. Nobody admits they grew up eating tuna noodle casserole with potato chip topping. Nobody admits their grandmother's green bean casserole was the best thing on the Christmas table. Call your grandmother if she's still alive. Ask her about the casseroles she made. Write down the recipes. Make them once, just once. Don't let the art of feeding a crowd on a budget die completely. Because once your grandmother's generation is gone, these casseroles are gone forever. And all you'll have left is a $30 DoorDash order and an empty 9E13 dish you've never used. Your grandmother's casserole dish is gone, but her recipes don't have to be.